Manchester City continue to struggle as they suffer their fourth defeat in a row. The last time this happened was back in 2006, and Liverpool, who are probably the best team in the world, now go 5 points clear after a dominant win against Villa. In Spain, Real Madrid are back to winning ways, taking advantage of Barcelona's second loss this season, this time coming against La Real, but Barcelona still remains 6 points clear. And lastly, in Liga MX, the Apertura season has come to an end as we now approach La Liga and the big matches that are going to come up. And we're going to talk about all of it. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys subscribe, like, please help this channel grow, help us get to 5K. We're close to 5K on Instagram. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Charla Football. I'm your host, as always, Gerardo, and we're going to talk Premier League, La Liga, Liga MX, and some other interesting world football topics, of course. But first, let's take it away to the best league in the world, the Premier League. And one of the shock results, and I guess it's not really a shock anymore. It's now the fourth time that this happened so far this season. It's Brighton versus Manchester City. 2-1 win for Brighton. An impressive result for Brighton, but for Manchester City, it just keeps getting worse. It's their fourth defeat in a row, and the fourth defeat in a row for Pep Guardiola in his managerial career ever. And the last time this happened for Manchester City was back in 2006. So this is just unfamiliar territory for Manchester City and definitely unfamiliar territory for Pep Guardiola, as he's never suffered anything like this. In a game for Manchester City where they lead for most of the game, they go up in the 22nd minute. Haaland, of course, getting on the score sheet, but it wasn't until late in the last few moments of the game, the final 15, 20 minutes of the game, really, it was all the second half where Brighton were just the better team. Manchester City just can't seem to close out games for whatever reason, and Brighton took full advantage of that. In the second half, Brighton were constantly threatening in behind. It was the high line that was killing Manchester City, but also the lack of pace to recover when they get beat. And when you're coming up against guys like Joao Pedro, Danny Welbeck, at his 37, 38 years of age, he's still threatening in behind. And then Matt O'Reilly, who of course got the winner. You cannot let these guys any ounce of space. You cannot give them any ounce of space, especially a guy like Joao Pedro, who has been dangerous all season, scored the winner against Manchester United, and now is influential. Joao Pedro gets the equalizer, and he gets the winning assist to Matt O'Reilly, who obviously puts Brighton up into the sixth spot. And then just sticking to Brighton a little bit, like I said, they're in the sixth place now. They're doing well under Fabian Herzler. He got the best of Pep Guardiola in this case. But it's just funny how Brighton just continue to no matter what kind of players they lose, no matter what managers they lose, they will always continue a winning path. And while they may not be the best team in the world, they are always a threat, especially in the Premier League. You look at Graham Potter's Brighton, and then that gets stripped apart. And then Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton, that gets stripped apart. And now they bring in a guy like Fabian Herzler, who I'm pretty sure not many people knew about prior to the season. But then you see how they're performing, has them in sixth place, beating big teams like United and City, and then probably other surprising results. Just can't think of them off the top of my head. But the fact that Brighton are doing things like this at the hands of a young coach like Fabian, it's wonderful to see. And now it's also crazy to see Pep Guardiola failing, kind of scrambling for ways for this team to recover, because it seems like nothing's working. And it's understandable that there's a lot of injuries, and then the players that they have on the pitch aren't really. I wouldn't say that they're of the quality that Manchester City need exactly. I mean, we're looking at guys like Mateus Nunes on the left side, on the right side, Savinho, who is still very fresh and raw. I mean, he was wonderful at Girona. Right now, he's still taking his time to settle into the Premier League. I don't think he's gotten a goal just yet. So he has his flashes of brilliance, but there needs to be more. I mean, you need more impact, especially like, for example, Riyad Mahrez or Raheem Sterling on the right side. No one's really stepping up, and Haaland obviously can't do it by himself. He's not a creator; he's a finisher. He needs someone to create for him. Foden's not having the best season. Gundogan, I don't know what happened in Barcelona. He performed well last season for Barcelona. He's come back, and it's like he's not the same player anymore. But the more the games go by, I think the most noticeable aspect is the missing piece. That missing piece is Rodri. I think everybody can tell and knows that Rodri is key to Manchester City system. And I mean, if we're just looking in the world of football, if you don't know, well, the number six role is probably the most influential role in all of the team, because that's where the play begins and that's where also you destroy the play if you're in defense as well. And Rodri has the capability. I mean, he has high IQ going forward. Not only is he an offensive threat, but defensively he's also a very solid player. You take that away, and obviously Manchester City look like they don't know what they're doing on the pitch. I mean, he's the one that controls everything in the middle, just like Busquets did for Barcelona in those prime years. But Rodri is very similar, if not could be a little bit better physically, not in the IQ aspect, but physically than Busquets. But you can see how important he is to this team. And as the days and games go by, I mean, that streak from just, I think, last season where Manchester City went dozens of games undefeated with Rodri on the pitch, and then when he's not on the pitch, they start losing. It's you see it play out, and it's just becomes something so insane to understand. But like you put these numbers into perspective, such as with Rodri, they played 81 games and only one loss, and that was just recently last season, I believe. And without Rodri, they played 25 games, and so far they've suffered 9 losses. So that just is a telling number to show how important he is to the team. And then also when it comes to the Balón de Oro, now just talking about Rodri individually, um, you can, like, a lot of people were saying that when he won the Balón de Oro that it wasn't deserved, that he's not key, he's not that important to Manchester City, to Spain. But you see with him not even on the pitch how detrimental he is to the midfield, how detrimental he is to Pep Guardiola's system in Manchester City. And I mean, it speaks for itself. Obviously, when he's there and he performs well, he is a key player, and there's the reason why he won the Ballon d'Oro as well, is why he's considered the best player of the past year or the past season. So Manchester City definitely stuck in the mud right now. They have two very difficult games against Tottenham at home and then Liverpool away, a Tottenham team that have already given them a loss this season. And yeah, it wasn't the Carabao Cup, but still a loss. It was still a Tottenham win. Now going away to Liverpool to play at Anfield, and Liverpool, who are definitely one of the best teams in the world, that's going to be also a very difficult game for Manchester City. So we can see them slipping, maybe even getting 6 losses in the season, which would be unheard of for Pep Guardiola and for Manchester City. We would have to look to see when was the last time they lost 6 games in a row. But yeah, it's looking like difficult times for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, who's just can't find the answers from the bench. No one's really stepping up on the field. No one is stepping up, and yeah, they're missing their leader in Rodri. Speaking of Anfield and speaking of Liverpool, we go to Anfield in a game where they faced off against Aston Villa. They beat them 2-0. They honestly ran them off the park. Aston Villa never showed up to this match, never threatened in behind. I think Kelleher maybe had like 1 to 2 saves really, but overall it was a quiet game. Another clean sheet for Van Dijk and Konate at the back. They're both just defensive monsters. Really, nobody can get past them. I don't even know how many clean sheets they have this season, but I'm pretty sure now we're looking at more than 5 at least. But yeah, Arne Slot, first off, doing a magisterial job at Liverpool against all odds, really. No one expected him to slot right in, pun intended. But he's made the best start by a Premier League manager with 15 wins in 17 games played. So in history, Premier League history, this has been the best start by a manager. So big ups to Arne Slot. Liverpool, top of the Premier League, I think by 5 points. Top of the Champions League as well, right above Monaco and Sporting Lisbon. So that's also crazy. But just sticking to the Premier League. And let's look at Villa for a little bit, because Villa have been very disappointing in the past few weeks. A Villa team who started off hot, but have been going from more to less recently. And we saw that in the Champions League in their loss against Brugge. And then now in the I don't even think it's disappointing that they lost. I think we expected Liverpool to win, but I think it's just the forms, the way it happens. You expect Villa to at least fight, put up a little bit more of a fight, and Villa just they were not there to fight. They were there to be completely manhandled by Liverpool, to be honest. Villa in the match, they offered nothing. They have gone from riding such a high to now just really low. They haven't gotten the win in the past yeah, the past 5 matches they haven't gotten a win. And the last time this happened was actually earlier back in May, where the end of last season they went 6 matches without a win and they lost the Conference League final and they lost the final few match weeks in the Premier League, but they still somehow got top 4. But now at the beginning of the season, this is not how you want to start. And I think now they're below 6th place. I want to say maybe 7th. Let me double check. They're actually in 9th place now. So yeah, it's just for Unai Emery and his men. They got to figure out what's going on. Maybe this international break will do them a little well. Will give them a little bit of a little breather and reset, which maybe is what they need. But as for Liverpool, they're a monster, mentality monsters on the pitch. They're just an engine that just doesn't stop, and they're like machines out there. Definitely up there with Barcelona as two of the best teams in the world. Now it's hard to pick which one is better than the other. You guys can go ahead and pick that. Let me know who you guys think is the best team in the world right now. Is it Liverpool? Is it Barcelona? We'll talk about Barcelona in a little bit, but yeah, for Liverpool right now, it's crazy. But in 2024, Mohamed Salah is still the guy to shine, still the guy to go to at 32 years old. He's in the peak of his powers still, and I don't know what Liverpool need to do to get him to stay. I talked to some Liverpool fans out at the Cosm when I was watching this game. If you guys haven't checked out the Cosm, make sure to do so if you're ever in the LA area. Honestly, it's incredible watching experience, especially for Premier League matches. But as I was talking to some fans, they said, pay him whatever, pay him whatever he needs, whatever he wants to assure that he stays in Liverpool and that he doesn't go to any other team, especially not a rival team in the Premier League, which I highly doubt. But even in the Champions League, you don't want him going to a Barcelona, to a Real Madrid, to a PSG. You don't want that because Liverpool and Mohamed Salah were meant for each other. He's already registered double-digit numbers, both in goals and assists in all competitions. So yeah, he's the most influential player. His stats speak for himself, and that's even what Arne Slot said. He knows that his Liverpool team are putting up incredible numbers, but Mohamed Salah is the one that stands out. So pay him more money. Pay him whatever he needs. Do not let him go. Now let's go over to Manchester United versus Leicester City. A 3-0 win for Manchester United. The second time this season where they win, scoring more than 3 goals. This second time, obviously, coming under Ruud van Nistelrooy in his last match at Old Trafford, in his last match as a Manchester United manager, as Ruben Amorim is now coming. I think just a few hours ago, he has arrived in Manchester. He has touched base with some of the staff. So, and unfortunately, Ruud van Nistelrooy will not be part of his project. It was bound to happen. I mean, Amorim has his own staff, and he's obviously doing very well. Did very well at Sporting, so he's going to try to bring his knowledge and his experience to Old Trafford. But now, just looking at this game, they've already faced each other, Leicester City and Manchester United, in the Carabao Cup. Manchester United winning by a difference of 3 goals in that game, and a 5-2 win for Manchester. But in this match, it was a special one. And I think a lot of people felt it. That was in the air. That was in the environment. People felt this was special because it was Ruud's last match. And he had to go off with a bang. And what a way. I mean, he has a perfect record managing Manchester United, which not a lot of managers can say. I think there's only one, Michael Carrick, that maybe can say that. But Ruud van Nistelrooy leaving him a perfect record at Old Trafford at Manchester United. 4 games played, 3 wins, 1 draw, 11 goals for, and 3 conceded. So some good numbers for him in only 4 matches. And for this Manchester United team that seemed like they can finally breathe. And now that Eric Ten Hag is gone, they can finally look forward to a better future. I think the fans feel it. The players definitely feel it as they're performing to a higher standard. I think the player that has stepped up the most this season so far is Amad Diallo, who he gets his opportunities here and there. Preseason, he was doing very well. I loved what he was doing from the right hand side. He's a very impactful player. Definitely a difference maker. Still kind of fresh. Needs probably more Premier League experience, but I think him starting gives, especially in this match against Leicester City, it gives Manchester United a little bit more of an attacking edge over their opponent because at least he's not the type of player to just cut back and play play a pass back when he's taking on his defender 1v1. He has no problem taking his defender 1v1. He is one of those wingers that are very direct, not afraid to take a shot, even if maybe it's not the best position. Um, I think it's just his choice making could be better, but that comes with experience and time for sure. If it's between him and Garnacho, I would definitely take him right now, even though Garnacho did get his goal today. Amad Diallo did provide an assist as well, a little back heel to Bruno Fernandes. But I mean, Garnacho, I think he's still too fresh. He's still too raw. I think off of the bench, Garnacho is much more impactful, as we've seen plenty of times for Manchester United, and as he proved in this match against Leicester City, putting up a beautiful goal, top bins. But I think Garnacho off of the bench, he's against tired legs. He's so quick, he's so agile, very direct as well. I think, and there's less pressure coming off of the bench as well. I think Garnacho needs to be maybe given less of a protagonist role, which is he has been given under Ten Hag. He's been starting him almost every match and not really stepping up to the task. But now off of the bench, seems like there's less pressure on him to perform. And when he does come on, if he does things like this, I mean, what an impact sub to have um, for Ruud van Nistelrooy first off, but also Ruben Amorim coming into this season, into the rest of the season. So yeah, Amad Diallo, big ups to him. He had an impressive match. Bruno Fernandes as well. Thought it was a brace at first, but it was actually an own goal by Leicester City defender Christensen. But yeah, overall, good game for Manchester United. Leicester City's looking real poor right now, and we'll see what Ruben Amorim can bring to Old Trafford. Now we go to Chelsea versus Arsenal, the big match of the weekend. Everyone is expecting this to be a banger. I think it kind of disappointed, at least in the first half. Going into the second half, there was a little bit more action as we got both goals of the game in this second half. I think this is more of a win for Chelsea and a probably feels like a fat defeat to Arsenal. They definitely could have taken advantage of the fact that Manchester City dropped points. Arsenal could have gotten the win, especially that they got some of their key players back, like Declan Rice, like Martin Odegaard, and Odegaard specifically. I want to touch on him because pause. I want to touch on him, no Diddy, but he is influential to this team like Rodri is to Manchester City. Odegaard's importance must not go unnoticed. He is the difference maker in attack for he's the difference maker in attack for Arsenal. And we saw off of the bench against Inter Milan, he was he was the one to construct the plays for Arsenal. Unfortunately, like we've been saying, they just lack that front that killer instinct up front. But with a guy like Martin Odegaard right behind, he can create for anybody, and that's what he did for Martinelli. Martinelli, who wasn't brilliant most of the match, I honestly did not like his performance. I love when a player takes on his, especially a winger. As a winger, this is your job to take on your defender, give your right back, your left back a very difficult time to defend. But Martinelli was making it real easy for Malo Gusto to take him on and defend him, always constantly cutting back and just playing the pass back, playing it safe. But the one moment where Martin Odegaard has a little bit of brilliance, like he always provides in every single match, chips a beautiful ball into Martinelli, who is almost left 1v1 with the keeper, finishes at the keeper's near post. David Raya get the best of him, but that was the lead for Arsenal. And maybe they could have held on to that, but it was really just a few moments later that Pedro Neto, who has been so underrated this season for Chelsea, and then just touching on him real quick, he's so quick. First off, he's one of the quickest players I have seen with my very own eyes. I mean, even in the Premier League, I don't think he's the fastest player, but definitely very quick, especially with the ball. He's a pace abuser for sure. He strikes from outside of the box. He was completely unmarked. Kai Havertz was probably the closest person to him, just watching the ball get passed to Pedro Neto. Pedro Neto, with acres of space in front of him, takes the shot with his left foot, and it's 1-1. And that's pretty much the game for Chelsea and for Arsenal. But I mean, disappointing for Arsenal. Really, they just continue to luck out. They just can't seem to find that stroke of luck that it takes, that it needs to be a powerhouse in the Premier League and in world football. Concerningly for Arsenal, they've already dropped points in 6 of their last 9 Premier League matches. Will it be difficult for them to even maintain a top 4 position? I think right now we're looking at an Arsenal team that's in 3rd or 4th, I believe. Yeah, they're just in 4th place. But I mean, you see teams like Nottingham Forest performing. You see teams like Brighton Fulham, who are also up there fighting, and Aston Villa have are also going to be fighting for top four. And I mean, Arsenal, I think, are far away from becoming title contenders, given how they've performed so far this season. I think it's definitely up for Liverpool and Manchester City if they can regain their form. Arsenal definitely out of contention, but yeah, they had to take advantage of that lead that they sustained at Stamford Bridge, and they didn't. So Arteta has to figure things out quickly. At least they have their main one of their main stars, and Martin Odegaard, back. But yeah, that front line of Martinelli, of Kai Havertz, of Bukayo Saka need just a little bit more threat for sure. Now we move over to Spain, a game where Real Madrid faced off against Osasuna, a 4-0 win for Real Madrid, a thumping win for Real Madrid, the need that they desperately needed as well because they've gone 2 matches without a win. They lost against Barca, they lost against AC Milan in the Champions League, so they definitely needed to show up, especially Vinicius Jr., who has not showed up since that tweet that he posted just a few weeks back when he lost the Ballon d'Oro to Rodri, said that he was going to come back 10 times stronger. And finally, that tweet and that idea of him coming back 10 times stronger, he shows that against Osasuna in La Liga. He definitely could have used the hat trick that he scored against Osasuna against Milan, but unfortunately, no one showed up to that game. But as for Real Madrid in this game, definitely the better team. Osasuna looked like they were too scared to play against Madrid. Osasuna had literally had no opportunities to create. Real Madrid were all over them from the first moment up until the last moment. Um, I think if Real Madrid really want to fix their season, they need to go back to relying on Jude Bellingham and on Vinicius Jr. Forget about Mbappe. Mbappe, he can find somewhere to hide within the field and see if he can get a goal here and there. But Mbappe, he's has not been performing since even before the Euros, even before the knockout stages of the Champions League. He was performing in Ligue 1 for a bit, and that's it. It's been over a year since we've seen a quality version of Kylian Mbappe, which is really unfortunate to see. But yeah, if Real Madrid want to get back and continue this winning form, they have to rely back on Jude Bellingham, who was their star player last season, and Vinicius Jr. as well, who was also the star player last season. So finally, also Jude arrives, has not scored at all this season. Finally gets a goal. He also gets an assist for Vinicius. But that goal, firstly, I want to talk about that. A beautiful chipped goal over the goalkeeper. He was one-on-one with the goalkeeper. It was a great ball from Raul Asensio, who came in because of Eder Militao's unfortunate injury, another ACL tear and meniscus tear as well. So I think he's going to miss the rest of the season because, like I said, this is the second time. And I can only imagine how difficult it is to come back from one ACL injury, let alone two ACL injuries. I mean, yeah, Real Madrid are going to have to do some serious digging in the winter transfer market. But firstly, that ball from Raul Asensio into Jude Bellingham to get Jude Bellingham's first goal of the season. It's a perfectly delivered ball, perfectly timed ball. But I don't want to talk too much about the kid Raul Asensio. If you guys search him up on Google and just search up allegations or case, I will leave it at that. You guys can do your own work on that, but I think his inclusion in the Real Madrid lineup, in the bench at all, is very questionable from Real Madrid as an institution. I don't think he should be there, but you guys go search it up on Google because I'm not going to talk about it on this page, but I'll leave that to you. But as for Jude Bellingham, he gets his goal. And as for the unfortunate injury to Militao, who wasn't the only one who got off injured, also Rodrigo sustained an injury in the first 20 minutes. I feel like, I mean, he's already been injured. He's was barely coming back from injury, but I think he was rushed. And he was unfortunately rushed because there's no way if he was 100% fit 20 minutes into the game, he's already going back down. Like if he was 100% ready, that would not happen. So I don't know what was the rush in bringing him back, and unfortunately now he's going to be out for the next few weeks again. So they're pushing back and hindering his progress. Not looking good for Rodrigo. And as for Militao, I mean, it's sad to see because he is a quality defender, a world class defender when he's at his best, especially right next to Rudiger. But yeah, now Real Madrid, they're gonna have to go to the winter transfer market. There's rumors of trying to bring in someone like Aymeric Laporte, who's at Al Nassr, but it's gonna be difficult to bring in a guy like Laporte, who he is a world class defender. He was at Manchester City, now at Al Nassr, 30 years of age, still a starter for the Spanish national team. But I don't think they're looking to buy him. So Real Madrid going to Al Nassr and asking for a loan, a 6-month loan specifically, is what they're looking for. I think it's gonna be very improbable for it to happen, unless Al Nassr are happy with doing that kind of business. But I don't think they're gonna be happy on letting go one of their star defenders and probably highest earners, and letting him go on loan and still paying for him while he's out on loan. I really don't think that's gonna happen. So Real Madrid at least get their win, but at what cost? But it was the win they definitely needed because Barcelona slipped up in the title race. They're still 6 points clear. They lost against La Real Sociedad, but still 6 points clear. You know, they've been doing their work astoundingly throughout the whole season, pretty much. They've only dropped points against Osasuna, now against Real Sociedad, in a game where there was no Lamine Yamal. I think he's having some ankle problems, not necessarily a full-on injury, but he has ankle problems. So they're giving him some few weeks of rest. I don't even think he's going to report for the international duties, so it's good for him to recover because 17 years old, still very fragile, still very fresh and young. Need to protect him at all costs because he is a wonderful player, and it's just crazy how important he is to a Barcelona team, to one of the best teams in the world at 17 years of age. Because you saw on the field, without him, they lack they lack threat, especially from the right hand side. Because Rafinha on the right is not the same that we see like him. It's not the same Rafinha that we see on the left or down the middle. On the right, just a different player. On the left, down the middle, he's a lot more threatening, especially in behind. Because Lamine Yamal is the one that picks him out. He's always finding those balls over the top into Lewandowski, into Rafinha, putting in assists and threatening crosses, putting pressure on the defensive line, but there was no pressure from the defensive line because they had no one creating. Bedri was pushed a little too high up. He performs a lot better from a little bit deeper, right next to Casado, at least in this season. They've been playing together perfectly. But Frankie de Jong, who's also been having problems, is not 100% fit, has also his problems, and especially going forward, he is a little bit lackluster. He tends to slow the game down sometimes, doesn't really know when to let go of the ball. Overall, it just wasn't Barcelona's day, basically what I'm trying to say. And it showed in the first 12 minutes. Lewandowski got his goal, but it was ruled offside, and incorrectly so. And if we all look, and maybe I'll try to put this on the screen, or if you go online and search up Barcelona VAR, Real Sociedad, or something, you will see that Lewandowski was clearly onside. In the take, in the picture, it shows that he was a toe offside, but the toe that they're actually referencing to or highlighting was La Real Sociedad player's foot. It wasn't Lewandowski's foot. And now there's memes all over social media saying that Lewandowski has like these clown feet, clown shoes, big ass feet. But I mean, it's just unfortunate refereeing from La Liga, and it was crazy to see Hansi Flick also reacting the way he did. Was clearly upset with the referee, especially at halftime. I think he went to go talk to the referee, letting him know that he made a mistake. Referees do not take accountability whatsoever for their mistakes, and it's normal. Like, we're all humans, we all tend to make mistakes. But when La Liga have semi-automated offside um, technology, you should be able to understand the difference on whose foot. I mean, if you look at the images, it's very clear on whose foot is offside or who's leaving him onside in this case. But it wasn't the case. Did it just, like I said, it wasn't Barcelona's day, wasn't Lewandowski's day. He wasn't able to get his goal. And I think that game really changed the moment because those first 12, 15 minutes, Barcelona were the better team. But La Real then gained confidence after getting that goal disallowed for Barcelona. And yeah, from there, they were the better team, 100%. Clearly better. Imanol Alguacil's men and La Real were impeccable. And it was weird to say because they haven't been so all season. Throughout the season, La Real Sociedad, I mean, I expected them to perform a lot better for sure, given that they have incredible players. Talking about Kubo, Subimendi, Gerardo Becker, who gets his goal against Barcelona. I think his first goal of the season. And what a way to get your first goal of the season against Barcelona. But going back to Take Kubo, who was probably the best performer in the match, I think he also got man of the match as well. finally getting some confidence from his head coach. I know he was having some problems with Imanol, which really shouldn't be happening because Takakubo is such an influential player, probably one of the best players in his position in the league, and you need him to be starting every single match if you want to fight for top four European spots. Real Sociedad definitely need him to step up. So I don't know what was really going on behind the scenes. I think there was rumors that him and his head coach were having problems. I really don't know what kind of problems they were having, but Takukubo, it will be key to La Real Sociedad's success in this season. And now they get their second win in a row, the first win against Sevilla last weekend, and now they get a win against Barcelona. So maybe this can be the turning point for La Real Sociedad and their season. Hopefully, looking forward to the rest of the season because yeah, overall they've been underperforming and they have too good of players to be underperforming. And as for Barcelona, I don't think they're too worried. I think will be more of a learning curve, kind of like how it was against Osasuna, where in that game Hansi Flick understood he cannot heavily rotate, and we have been seeing that. Now he just rotates 1 to 2 players, but now in this game he has to find a way on not to rely on Lamine Yamal so much. But Barcelona have done so well this season. I'm pretty sure they're going to come back without a problem. We're going to see the same Barcelona that scores 3-4 past every team. Once they get their things figured out, this international break will definitely do them well and recover some key players. And lastly, in La Liga, we go to Mallorca versus Atletico de Madrid, an Atletico team who get their win against Mallorca. And going to Mallorca is always a difficult place to ask any team, as Madrid, as Barcelona specifically. But going to Mallorca, because they're defensively just a pest to play against, it's very hard to get a result. Mainly what comes out is the draw, and the Mallorca are always the ones that are more than happy with the draw at home against these big teams. But unfortunately for Mallorca, their defense was broken an hour into the game or so. It was Julian Alvarez who gets his 7th goal of the season. Maybe it's a turning point for him as he's starting to bag a few more goals consistently. Good for Julian Alvarez. But the one that's becoming the key player for this team is not Julian Alvarez. It's not Antoine Griezmann. It's not Sorloth. It's not Gallagher. It's Giuliano Simeone. Simeone, his son, has stepped up for his father. And what a way and what a feeling that must be for your son to be performing the way he's performing for your team. But I mean, I've already said this before, where a lot of people think this might be, favoritism or because it's his son, of course he's going to play him. But no, he's actually a quality player and he's showing that every time he steps on the pitch. I think this time off of the bench, but he bags another assist in La Liga. And he's the one that set up Julian Alvarez unselfishly because he was right in front of the goal. He could have taken it with his left foot. He saw Julian Alvarez had a little bit more of an opportunity, a little bit more space, and saw the goal on clear. He leaves it for Julian Alvarez, who puts it away. Unselfish play from Giuliano Simeone. And that begs the question, is Simeone becoming Atleti's most important player, at least at the beginning part of the season? Will he be the most important player for Cholo Simeone's Atletico going into the rest of the season? Because so far it's shaping up to be like that, which is incredible to see. I don't think I've ever seen a partnership like that. Father as the manager, son as the star player for the team. This might be the first time I'm gonna have to do some research on that. But to see Diego Simeone and his son bringing Atletico some life in the league and in the Champions League as well, as he was also influential in that game. We'll see what happens for Atletico because maybe they can make their comeback and fight for that third or maybe even second spot with Real Madrid. Now, I want to touch on the Scudetto race and this Inter versus Napoli game, specifically a 1-1 draw for Inter Milan versus Napoli. This was a direct fight for first place because if Inter won, they would have gone top of the Serie A. Napoli drew with Inter Milan. Probably feels more of a win for Napoli because they definitely could have lost that game given that Hakan Çalhanoğlu missed a penalty, which is unheard of. I think he's gone 19 for 19 in penalties, scoring one midweek for Inter Milan in that win against Arsenal. But Napoli will be glad to take the win. To take the draw in this case. They're still top of Serie A with 1 point in difference. It was Scott McTominay who first gave the lead to Napoli in the opening minutes of the game. Then Hakan Çalhanoğlu from just making something out of nothing. But you just cannot give Çalhanoğlu any sort of space. He is a sharpshooter from outside of the box. and he's been so. He's been like that for years, from Bayer Leverkusen to AC Milan, now at Inter Milan. He's always just a sharpshooter. He's a lethal threat from outside of the box. And yeah, with a little bit of space, 25 yards, he puts it. I mean, it wasn't even top corner or anything, but it's just the power that he hits these balls. It was just knuckling, moving too much for the goalkeeper to really do anything. So he gets the equalizer. He had the opportunity to tie the goal, he had the opportunity to take the win for Inter Milan. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, which is just not like him. So don't know what happened there. But yeah, the Inter definitely missed a chance to go on top of the Serie A. Napoli 1 point ahead. But let's just talk about the Serie A as a whole as a moment. I mean, the fight for the Scudetto is so tight from first to sixth place. There's only 2 points that separate those teams. First place being Napoli, sixth place is Juventus, and then it's Lazio, Inter, Fiorentina, and Atalanta, all tied with 25th points in between all those teams. It's just this title race can go to anybody. It can go to any of those six teams. AC Milan is the next best team. I think they have 18 points. They are sitting in seventh place, who I don't think they're going to fight for the Scudetto anytime soon right now, given how they've started in Serie A. But yeah, this title race is just insane. I just had to talk about it, of course. And now from Italy, we move over to Mexico. Mexico, where in Liga MX, the Apertura season is wrapped up. Unfortunately, for those who love the regular season, it's over. Now we move over to Liguilla. We still have some play-in matches to figure out who makes the seventh and eighth slots. It's anyone's game, at least when it comes to Liguilla, as it's shown many times. Even though Cruz Azul has had a record-breaking season, it can really go any way. Toluca are also an incredible team. Tigres, um, and America, who maybe can make a comeback in La Liga, cannot write them off as well. But they definitely did not end the season the way they wanted to in a match against Toluca, a 4-0 win for Toluca over America, a match that was basically a Liga match. America were looking to qualify top six to automatically get into La Liga. So if they got into top six, they didn't have to worry about playing a play-in match. Now, losing 4-0, they have to play a play-in match, which is the first time they ever do so in their history. It's what happens when there's been so many key injuries to this team, and just players who have been underperforming besides a handful against the Toluca team. You cannot step off of the gas. Toluca definitely going forward, one of the best teams, probably even better than Cruz Azul going forward. Defensively, a little shaky, but hey, at least in this case, they kept a clean sheet against an America team who are also just as threatening going forward, but really were limited to nothing in this match because Toluca played it that well. And even their head coach, Paiva, said that this was probably the best display that they've put up all season. And to do it in the last game of the season, going to Liga, that's a perfect way for Toluca to end the season as they go undefeated in El Infierno in the Nemesio. I mean, that is how you want to end the season for sure for Toluca's perspective. They showed their ruthlessness in attack. They made America's backline look so frail. I don't know what Araujo's doing back there. Kevin Alvarez, Malagon, who couldn't save a single thing. Yeah, unfortunately for America, they got exposed. They got exposed, and we'll see if Tijuana takes advantage of that, as that's their play-in matchup. It will be Tijuana versus America. So we'll see what happens there because it can go either way. And moving over to one of the more exciting matches as well, Cruz Azul versus Tigres, a 1-1 draw. This was a fight for Tigres to get into the second place and overtake Toluca in that position, as they were the one as they just recently beat Toluca, I think, just last week. And Cruz Azul, who drew against Atlas. They're so good. Cruz Azul are so good. Going to the actual game itself, it was a stalemate for most of the match up until the last few minutes when Tigres have the opportunity to go up 1-0. They took advantage of it. It was Antuna who goes down inside of the box, literally coming right after a play where Cruz Azul were looking to get a penalty. It wasn't called in their favor. Then Tigres get a penalty just a minute or two after. Antuna goes down inside of the box, and it would have been perfect for Antuna to take a penalty and win the game as a Tigres player against his ex-club in Cruz Azul. But yeah, he was the one that gets taken down, but it wasn't him that stepped up. I think it was Nico Ibanez who scores the goal. Tigres go up 1-0, and you thought that was it. You thought that Cruz Azul lo Cruz Azulio, where, if you don't understand that term, that basically means that they're a bottle job or they choke in the moment where there is the most pressure. Because in this match for Cruz Azul, they just needed 1 point to break the record to become the team with the most points in Liga MX history of the Apertura and Clausura season. So in this short form season, they would have been the first team to break the record of points. And that's all they needed. They just needed 1 point. And when Tigres went up 1-0 in the last few moments of the game, I thought that was wraps. I thought it was. I even left. I turned off the TV. I was like, I can't believe Cruz Azul did it again in a moment of pressure. They just can't step up, you know. And I was like, oh shit, this is probably gonna fuck over their season in Liga. But in the literal last minute of the game, maybe the referee was a little too giving in giving them an extra 30 seconds to 1 minute. But in that last 30 seconds to 1 minute, it's Angel Sepulveda, El Angel, the player who has been influential up top for Cruz Azul. And I think it's probably the least likely one because overall, Cruz Azul's players have all stood out. Jorge Sanchez, Alexis Gutierrez, Rotondi, um, who else am I missing? Yukamakis, but also Angel Sepulveda, whether it's starting or off of the bench, he is now the second best goal scorer in Liga MX, but the first Mexican, though he comes up on top past Henry Martin with most goals scored, and he gets the tying goal in the last few minutes of the game, and he gives Cruz Azul the record, and they break the record. They are now considered the best team in history, I guess. But that begs the question: are they really the best team in history? Have we seen other teams perform better than this Cruz Azul team? I personally don't think so, given what I see on the field. And I mean, it's hard to talk about the 70s, 80s. I wasn't there in those times, but I mean, the way this Cruz Azul team plays, not just all the results, I think they got 15 wins now, 2 draws and 1 loss. But but I mean, the way they play, they are relentless. Their relentlessness, their prowess going forward, how threatening they always are in behind, and how defensively solid they were and are as well. I mean, they definitely are up there as one of the best teams in Liga MX history. And they put up some incredible numbers. I mean, they were the best offense with 39 goals scored, the best defense with 12 goals scored against them, and then just playing the best soccer overall in the continent. And yeah, they're preparing everything to win their 10th league title and maybe create some history for the club. Now, moving over to some other results, we go to Necaxa versus Atlas, a 0-0 tie, stalemate there, but it was more of a win for Atlas as they secured their play-in spot, especially since León lost against Monterrey in that game where it was just hell that broke loose, especially in the last few moments of the match. It was supposed to be a beautiful match as it was Guardado's last professional match. So even in Monterrey, they gave him a beautiful send off. Some of his Mexican national team players and ex teammates like Sergio Canales, Hector Moreno, Tecatito Corona, and maybe I might be missing one more, but they were all there cheering on Andres Guardado in his last match. It was supposed to be a beautiful game, but yeah, it just got completely messed up because he got ugly in the last few minutes. Some red cards, some fighting, some harassment from fans to players, which is just things that you don't want to see in a match. But Monterrey, they get their win. They move to 5th place because luckily they didn't get stuck in 6th place, because if they got stuck in 6th place, they would have been facing against Tigres in a Clásico Regio, and would have been a very difficult match for sure. And Tigres, I'm pretty sure, are happy that it's not a Clásico Regio, given how the last performance was in Clásico Regio. But as for León, they just missed out. They needed a win. And I think it's not even that they needed a win in this match. I think it was the game in Toluca where they had everything in favor. They were up 2-0, and all they had to do was see out the game. And they dropped the result there. They drew there. And then now a loss here just completely fucks them over. So I think that game against Toluca was key for their position in the 10th spot to get into play-in, but now it will be Atlas who just sneak into 10th place, and who drew against the best team in Liga MX and Cruz Azul. The midweek they drew 2-2, and now Atlas are the ones to face Chivas, and Tijuana will be facing America in the play-ins. And now I just want to talk about the best, the underrated, and the worst teams in the Apertura season and going into Liguilla. So for the best, obviously, it has to be Cruz Azul. I already mentioned those record-breaking numbers, and then, I mean, just playing the best football out of all the Mexican teams and probably in all of the continent, definitely have to be up there. Anselmi's work has been impeccable, one of the best managers to step foot in Liga MX, and he's showing that statistically and on the field as well. San Luis have to be the underrated. They beat Chivas in the last few moments. In the last few moments of the game, they beat Chivas. They just snuck into Liga, automatically qualifying in sixth place. Dominic Torrent has done an incredible job there. Dominic Torrent, who, as you don't know, or may know, I'm not sure, but he was an assistant manager for Pep Guardiola for some time at Barcelona, at Manchester City, and now he's ventured off on his own to Mexico out of all places and is getting a team like San Luis in Liga and making them one of the more underrated teams in the league for sure. And yeah, maybe they can perform something special in La Liga. And then going to the worst teams in Liga MX. For me, I think an overall in the entirety of the season, I think the worst team. I'm not gonna say last place Santos because that's very easy. I'm gonna go for Pachuca, given that they won the recent Champions Cup against Columbus Crew, and there was this high expectation for Almada and his team, and they always provide something special. They have not only do they play well, but they always bring players. They always bring the best out of their young players, especially the academy players. But yeah, this season just wasn't their season. It looks like they're focused on something else, and yeah, they've had some horrible results. And for Pachuca, definitely, I think an underwhelming season overall. Hopefully next season they can build something better moving towards the future. But yeah, for now, just we're incredibly disappointing in the entirety of the season. And as for the worst teams going into Liga, I think it definitely has to be between Chivas and Atlas. I couldn't really choose, but they both have negatives about them. I don't even think they deserve to be in the position that they're in. But as for Chivas, they have not beaten any of the teams that are going to be in Liga and in play-in spots. They haven't beaten any of the single 9 teams that will be trying to get into Liga or are already in La Liga. They've either drawn or lost, and that's pretty much it for Chivas. So yeah, I mean, looking like another first round exit for Chivas. And then as for Atlas, who haven't won in the last 6 matches, it's been draws and lost. The last win was against Chivas, a 3-2 win for Atlas and El Clásico Tapatío. So really, I mean, just two very underperforming teams. At least for the good side for Atlas is that they drew against the best team in Cruz Azul. But other than that, I mean, they have nothing to really show for, especially based off of results. But yeah, that kind of wraps up the Premier League, Liga MX, and La Liga. If you guys made it this far, please make sure to subscribe, follow, like, check out all the other platforms below. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys on the next one. Enjoy this international window. Take some time to meditate, pray, vacation, whatever you need. I'll see you guys on the next one.